Here we have a few British books. Another collector grade publication, the Bren Gunn Saga. And not surprisingly, everything you want to know about the Bren Gun. I believe it also covers Brens used around the world. Chinese, I believe, is in here. Everything you need to know. I wish I could own one. Okay, here is a genuinely rare book, very hard to find book, the Ross Rifle Story by Phillips Dupuy. I'm probably mispronouncing that, and Mr. Chadwick. Okay, and this looks like it was printed up in Canada, which isn't surprising, back in 1984. And I'm sorry my camera does not focus in as nicely as I wish. But this is virtually an encyclopedia on the Ross rifle. Looks like it is 475 pages of material just on the Ross. And I think this could safely be considered the definitive work on the Ross rifle. It looks like we've got various accessories, wire cutters, tools. I bought this book because I always wanted to get into the Ross rifles, but here we are 20 some years later, never happened. So I think it's time to let someone else use this book. It's not getting any use sitting on my shelf. Very, very nice book. Once again, unused. A little bit of shelf wear from moving back and forth. Looks like there's a little bit of a edge wear on the jacket, rip on the back corner. But I'm not selling these as collector items. These are books. These are reference books. And this book, I've just had it open, just paging through for this video is probably the most it's ever been opened and paged in the whole time I've owned it. Okay, here is an absolute classic. I cannot tell you how long it took me to find this copy back in the early 80s. And I paid about $100 for it. Before Skennerton, before Ian came out with his wonderful books on the Lee Enfield rifles, this was the work. And it's a great book. Absolutely great. Major Reynolds put this book out, looking for a publishing date, 1960 it was originally published, and it looks like a 1968 reprint here. But a very, very scholarly book, a very good book. We can't really compare it to Ian's work, but for its time, really just a great book. And very difficult, very hard to obtain. And like I said, back when the dollar was worth a good bit more than it is today, I paid $100 for it. This probably runs back to about 82 or 83. Book itself, excellent condition. You can see this is one of the few that I actually read. It looks like the cover, the dust jacket, of course, is gone. Looks like the cover has a little bit of, I don't know if that's crayon or whatever, but the book itself, very nice shape. But it's not a collector's piece, not a museum piece. It's a collector's reference in great shape. Great book. Okay, speaking of Ian Skinnerton and his associate, Mr. Temple, here's a book they put out on the Martini Henry. And I believe Ian put out several books. This one, I believe, is the very first. And this looks always hard to tell about publishing dates. It looks like it was first published in '83, and I don't see a date. This may or may not be a first edition, but it's one of his earlier books, and it covers everything from 1869 to 1900. And once again, once upon a time, I had planned on getting heavily into Martini Henrys, and it never happened. But just a great book. Anything Ian puts out, you can guarantee, you can tell it has been heavily researched and wonderfully put together. Out of print book, scarce book, excellent. Okay, we've got another one. Mr. Skinnerton, of course, comes from Australia, and anybody knows firearms and guns down there, it's Ian Skinnerton. Australian Service Long Arms. And this one goes back to, and I know you can't see it, but it says copyrighted '75, first published in '76, and I'm not certain, because it doesn't really tell me. I'm not certain if this was an original first edition from '76 or a reprint. It is what it is. It is essentially a brand new book, sat on my shelf all these years, and covers everything about various Australian long arms. Very nice, good supplement to Ian's books on the Lee Enfield and whatnot. And here we've got similar work he put out on the Snider, another very early single shot breech loader. I believe this book has been reprinted, and I probably bought this back in the '80s. I'm not certain. But once again, it's not a collector's piece. It's not a piece of art. It's a working reference book in excellent condition, and it has spent 99.9% of its existence in my hands, sitting on the shelf unread. Jacket, everything looks nice. All three of these Skinnerton books are essentially unread. Okay, we've got a smaller publication by Ian Skinnerton. Once again, these are all hardbacks. British Small Arms of World War II, a complete reference guide, all the maker's markings. And this is primarily just a reference work. Everything you want to know about the little markings on the weapons, on the accessories, bayonets, whatever. And virtually an encyclopedic reference from Mr. Skinnerton. Very nice book.